Are you all ready? Everybody unmuted or muted as the case may be. Just wave. Thank you, John. I will call to order the meeting of the County of Oxford Land Division Committee for Thursday, December the 3rd, 2020. Do we have any declaration of conflict of interest today? None. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from November the 5th, please? John? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I move that we accept the minutes as circulated for the November 5th meeting.
Seconded. Russell? Okay, all those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Any business arising from the minutes, Mrs. Tashner?
No, there is none.
Any late correspondence?
Yes, there is. Before the committee, I emailed the committee the late correspondence. I'll just briefly outline what they are, and then I believe Ron will address them at the time that each application is considered. So the first letter is received from David Rowe regarding application B 2041-3 and A 2083 for Wesley Simpson. The second is correspondence received from the County of Oxford Public Works Department regarding B 2040-03, I'm sorry, B 2043 and A 2007-3 for the trustees of Curry's United Church. The third piece of correspondence is from the Township of Zora regarding application B 2056-5, David Clendenning and Christian Speck. We have correspondence from the Township of East Zora Tavistock regarding application B 2052 for David and Tricia McIntyre. And the last piece of correspondence is from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority regarding application B 2043, A 2007-3 for the Curry's United Church.
Thank you, Mrs. Tashner. Do you wish to call the first application, please?
Application B 2043-8 for JJZ Developments Incorporated.
And it's my understanding we have nobody hanging around in the nether there somewhere to discuss this. So Ron, would you like to present the application, please, from the county's point of view?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully everybody can hear me. The first application for the committee's consideration this morning is a application within the city of Woodstock, and I will share the document with you. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so as shown on plate 1, it is the intent of the application is to create a vacant industrial lot within the city of Woodstock. As shown on plate 1 of the planning report, the lands are bounded by Parkinson Road to the north and Commerce Way to the south. The lands are designated as traditional industrial in the official plan, and the lot to be severed has a split zoning of general industrial M3 and a restricted industrial M2, and the lot to be retained is zoned M3. In terms of access to the property, as shown on the report, as you can see, there's a paved street, which is Commerce Way, which is the lands to the south, and then the lands to be retained has access via County Road, which is Parkinson Road, as well as the paved street to the south, which is Commerce Way. The lot to be severed is to be approximately 1.5 hectares in area, or 3.7 acres. The lands to be retained are approximately 3.7 hectares, or about 9.2 acres in area. The severed parcel is currently vacant. retained lot has an existing industrial building that is currently vacant. And in terms of surrounding land uses, we have a mix of industrial uses as well as a number of residential dwellings that are front onto Parkinson Road. From a provincial policy perspective, we feel the application is consistent. It represents lot creation for employment purposes within an established settlement area. Forward with respect to the official plan, again, we feel the application is in keeping. As mentioned, the lands are designated traditional industrial. The intent will be used for employment purposes. With respect to zoning, the lands that are to be retained are appropriately rezoned. The only thing we're recommending in the zone change, or is that a zone change be obtained. That's to clean up the split zoning on the fact that there's a split zoning of M2 and M3 on the lot to be severed, just to clean that up. In terms of agency comments, they're really fairly straightforward. The building department at the city had requested a building report to identify the spatial separation between the existing building and the new lot lines to ensure they meet building code requirements. City engineering department had requested, indicated that the applicant will be responsible for their portion of the services and infrastructure that the city installed as part of the Commerce Way Business Park construction, and that will be addressed through the severance agreement and payable prior to the issuance of a building permit. Parks Department at the city indicated that a number of large trees are located along the entrance of Parkinson and that they will need to be taken into consideration during the design of the severed lot. The landscape arborist plan is required as part of the site plan submission. So that's not the severance, but obviously the next step after zoning is obtained. In terms of public works comments at the county, they requested road widening and also indicated that new entrants will not be permitted onto Parkinson. In terms of public consultation, no comments have been received from the public through the circulation of the application. City of Woodstock Council did consider the application at their meeting on November 19th and indicated their support of the application. So moving forward, Mr. Chairman, just to summarize, the application is consistent with the policies in the provincial policy statement and also within the official plan. There is a recommendation to rezone the property, severed parcel, I should say, to ensure that there's one zoning on the property. There's other elements with respect to city requests that are incorporated into the recommended conditions. So just to summarize, there is a recommendation to support the application subject to 8 conditions for committee's consideration.
Thank you, Ron. Committee, do you have any questions? Aaron?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just have a question for Mr. Verstegen. The site plan
Yeah, I can hear.
shows access for trucks to and from Parkinson Road. Could you speak to that?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
The site plan that we have attached to our application does show access to Parkinson Road for trucks. It's the last sketch on our package, plate 3.
Through the chair, I believe that that's an access. I don't know if it's for truck purposes. I think the comments indicate that the trucks currently outlet onto Commerce Way and then go out to either Universal or to Beards Lane, which is a controlled access point for them.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ron, I have a question. In fact, it's an extension of the one you just heard from Aaron's. The county has specifically said they will not allow an entrance onto Parkinson Road, but I don't see anything in the conditions covering that. Oh, can't hear you, Ron.
But there.
There you go.
Yeah, I believe that's already in place, so I don't know if it's necessarily a requirement to add to it. I think it's already kind of, it's already a given that the access is through Commerce Way.
Okay, thanks, Ron. And my second question is there any indication of the type of trucking that they're going to be looking at? Is it extra large load or just standard vans? What?
That, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure, but I don't believe there's any real restriction on the type. It allows trucking operations as permitted by the bylaw, so there's no real limit or definition of the type of trucking.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Any other questions, committee? None. Could I have a motion, please? Diane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that application B 2043-8 be approved with the 8 conditions shown, reason 1.
Thank you. Seconded. Aaron? Any comments concerning the motion? Oh, John? Oh, okay. Any comments concerning the motion? All those in favor? Yeah, I see 6 hands there, count 7, counting mine. So that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Yes, call the next one, please, Mrs. Teschner.
All those in attendance for application B 2048-6 for Brian Kahn and Pamela Lux Kahn.
Mr. Kahn with us, Matt? Oh, there he is. Good morning, Mr. Kahn.
I'm good. Good morning.
Now, Mr. Kahn, you're here with regards to application B 20-48-6, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, our procedure will be the county will present its report, then you will get an opportunity to reply or ask questions on your own. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yep.
Thank you. Ron, would you proceed, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next application, I'll do the share document here. Represents a residential lot addition within the town of Ingersoll. As you committee can see, the lands are located on the east side of Harris Street, just immediately south of David. The area outlined in red is the lot to be enlarged. The area outlined in black is the lands to be retained. And then finally, the outline blue is the parcel that's to be added. Plate 2 probably gives the committee a better feel of what the applicant or what the application is about. In particular, it's to recognize the historical encroachment of a portion of a driveway that is currently used by the landowner of the lot to be enlarged. Of course, these lands are within the town of Ingersoll. The lands are currently designated as low-density residential, and all the lots in question are zoned R1. In terms of the existing uses, again, the parcel to be severed contains a portion of an existing driveway. The lot to be retained contains an existing single detached dwelling and an attached garage. And then the lot to be enlarged contains a dwelling, an attached garage, in-ground swimming pool, and 2 accessory buildings. The parcel to be severed will be approximately 81.2 square meters in area, or a little over 874 square feet in area. The lot to be retained be approximately 518 square meters in area, or 5,575 square feet. And the lot to be enlarged is 2736.6 meters in area, or a little under 30,000 square feet. It's our understanding no new development is proposed as a result of this consent application. As mentioned, it's to recognize a historical encroachment of a driveway. Both the lot to be retained and enlarged will continue to be used for residential purposes. From a provincial policy perspective and an OP perspective, application really does not offend any of the policies. It's really kind of representing, as mentioned, the lot addition. In terms of zoning, all the lands are appropriately zoned, so there's no zone change required in order for the application to proceed. In terms of agency comments, I think the only one comment that's really relevant in this particular case is the chief building official at the town indicated that a building permit is required for the rear yard deck on the retained lands and that they should be brought into compliance as soon as possible and as reflected as a recommended condition. The balance of the other comments had no comments or concerns. No comments have been received through the agency circulation from neighboring landowners. And to summarize fairly quickly, Mr. Chairman, we feel the application is supportable from a planning perspective, and then there is recommended conditions for the committee's consideration.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. Khan, do you have any questions concerning the report? None? I think you're on mute, Mr. Khan. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Now, there are 3 conditions, Mr. Khan. Do you understand and accept all 3?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Committee, do you have any questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Khan, I have one question. Do you own one of these 2 properties?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Which one?
The one is being severed to be added to the other property.
The smaller one.
The smaller one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Committee, nothing else? Could I have a motion, please? Peter?
I move that we accept application B 20-48-6 with the 3 conditions attached, reason 1.
Thank you, Peter. Seconded? John? Any comments concerning the motion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Your application's been accepted. But Mrs. Teschner has a couple of comments to make before you leave us, okay?
Okay. Yep.
Good morning, Brian. You can take your sign down now.
Perfect. I will do that. Thank you very much.
And you'll be sent a decision within 15 days. And then there's a 20-day appeal period after that date. So it'll likely be after the new year that we'll be contacting you that no appeal was received.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now, Mr. Khan.
Goodbye.
Proceeds, please.
All those in attendance for application B 2052 for David and Patricia McIntyre.
Oh,
Nope, we got contact there.
okay.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. McIntyre. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good morning.
Now, you're here with regards to application B 20-50-2. Hey, go 1 second, please.
I believe Jeff Jansen is in on this as well. Is he not?
Is Mr. Jensen with you, Mr. and Mrs. McIntyre?
Not with us. I don't know whether he's on though.
But he's with your application though.
Oh, yes, he's with our application, yes.
Okay,
But I don't know whether he's joined the meeting.
he is. We just saw him glaring into his camera there.
Okay.
Now, as I said, you're here for application B 20-50-2. Is that correct?
Yes,
Well, our procedure is the county will present its report for the application. Then when he's finished, you'll get an opportunity to reply and ask questions yourselves. And then the committee will ask questions of you or the county, okay?
Okay.
okay.
Jensen, that okay? Okay, Ron, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll do the share here, the mapping. Committee consideration of what's proposed here. The application represents an agricultural lot addition within the township of East Sword Tavistock, and the other component is the retention of a lot for non-farm rural residential purposes. So plate 1 shows that the location of the property, the severed parcel fronts onto the west side of 15th line, just north of Oxford Road 33. Plate 2 gives the committee a consideration of the existing land uses in the immediate area. And then the plate 3 gives the committee an appreciation of the application configuration. As mentioned, the intent is an agricultural lot addition as well as the retention of an a non-farm rural residential lot. The lands are designated within the official plan as being agricultural reserve. The lots to be severed and enlarged are currently zoned A2 in the township zoning bylaw. So as well as the lot to be retained, which is the non-farm rural residential lot, and there is a proposed zoning for that lot to be specially zoned to RR. In terms of existing land uses, there is a single detached dwelling, accessory to the farm, and a garden shed and a pool on the lot to be retained. The severed parcel contains an agricultural barn and shed and a storage bin. And then finally, the lot to be enlarged contains 2 accessory single detached dwellings, 3 barns and 2 sheds. The severed parcel is to be approximately 19.4 hectares in area, or 46.6 acres. The retained lot is a little under a hectare in area, or approximately 2 acres. And then finally, the lot to be enlarged is 121.5 hectares, or just over 300 acres in area. The other thing is important to note is that the drive shed and barn and the storage bin on the lot to be severed, the applicants have indicated that that will be removed. And of provincial policy, the committee is probably aware of this, but there is lot creation policies in the provincial policy statement that enable limited amount of lot creation and lot adjustments. 4 of them are for agricultural purposes. Another is for agricultural related uses, and 3rd is for a surplus farm residence as a result of a farm consolidation, and then for infrastructure. Now, in this particular case, the application checks off it's for agricultural purposes and for a surplus farm residence. So, and not we're of the opinion that the application is consistent with the PPS. In terms of official plan policies, there is farm consolidation policies, which we feel the application is consistent with. And then the other element, of course, is the non-farm rural residential lot and the creation of that. There is policies in the official plan that are in the form of the point system, where there is various factors that are given certain weight to consider these, so they're considered in a consistent and an impartial manner. And in this particular case, the application accumulates +8 points as detailed in the report. 10 points are associated with the fact that it does bound onto surrounding agricultural uses in the immediate area, but it does get a -2 point deduction because it is a surplus dwelling made through a farm consolidation. And in that particular case, Mr. Chairman, we feel the application is in keeping with the official plan policies. In terms of the zoning of the property, the lots to be enlarged and the lot to be retained the lot to be severed are appropriately rezoned, are appropriately zoned. The only thing is that the non-farm rural residential lot would need to be rezoned to an RR special to reflect that it will not be used for farming purposes. The only other element to it as well is that there would be a special provision required to recognize the proposed lot frontage of 24 meters in place of the required 35 meters in the township zoning bylaw, but that has been a recommended condition. In terms of agency comments, the East Sword Tavistock Public Works manager had indicated any changes to the driveway access on any of the properties will be require approval from the Public Works Manager. Before doing so, the CEO indicated that a drainage reapportionment will be required and also asked for an updated survey to verify the location of the well septic system and existing house into the new lot lines. No comments have been, sorry, one other element in terms of, as a Bettleroy correspondence committee is aware that the Township Council at East Shore Tavistock indicated their support of the application. No comments have been received through the circulation of the application to neighboring landowners. Then to quickly summarize, we feel the application is consistent with provincial policy, NOP policies, and the recommended comments that have come out of the agency circulation are reflected in the recommended conditions. Based on this, Mr. Chairman, we feel the application is supportable from a planning perspective, subject to the 7 conditions in the recommendation.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. and Mrs. McIntyre and Mr. Jensen, there are 7 conditions attached. Do you understand and accept all 7?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, do you have any questions concerning the report?
The only question I have was the amount of acreage
Separate.
to sever was 47.9, not 46.6.
Ron, do you want to reply to that?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it really poses an issue. I think there will be required for a survey, and that will reflect the proper acreage. So I think in this particular case, the intent of the application is still being maintained. So I think we're okay there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Committee, any questions, concerns? None? Could I have a motion, please? Aaron? Can't hear you, Aaron.
Sorry about that. I move that we accept application B20-50-2 with the attached conditions, reason number 1.
Thank you very much. Seconded. Diane, any comments concerning the motion? All those in favor? That's 7 hands. Thank you very much. Your application has been accepted, Mr. and Mrs. McIntyre and Mr. Jensen. If you just stay on the line for a few seconds, Mrs. Tashner here will have a couple of comments to make for you, okay?
Okay,
Okay.
Good morning.
good morning.
Your application's been approved. So you can now take your signs down from the property.
Okay,
I believe that Dustin will be in touch with you regarding the rezoning of your application. He'll be contacting you regarding that.
okay,
The decision will be sent out to you in the next 15 days. And then there is a 20-day appeal period from that date. I will follow up in the new year with confirmation of the appeal period being up and likely that there were no appeals received. You have 1 year to meet the conditions and to have your lawyer present your legal documents to our office, or the application will lapse.
okay,
Okay.
If you have any questions, just give me a call.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. McIntyre and Mr. Jensen. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
All those in attendance for applications B20-51-7 1822094 Ontario Inc. And B 2052-7 for Escalade Property Corporation.
Okay, I saw Miss Roser somewhere. Oh, there she is, up in the corner.
And there's supposed to be another gentleman. Jonathan Leahy.
Oh, and Mr. Leahy as well. Do we have a Mr. Leahy on board? Nope, apparently not. So we'll proceed. Ms. Roser, you're here to represent applications B 20-51-7 and B 20-52-7. Is that correct?
Oh,
You have to unmute.
That's correct, Chair. Thank you.
There we go. Now we can hear you as well as see you. So our procedure is the county will present its report concerning the two applications. Then you will get an opportunity to reply or ask questions of that report. And then the committee will ask questions as well. Okay?
Thank you.
Ron, would you proceed, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me share the mapping for the committee's consideration. As shown on plate 1 of the planning report, the location of the properties is within this town of Tillsonburg. Plate 1 shows the intent here is there's really two applications for the committee's consideration. B51, which is the lot to be enlarged at the south end here outlined in green, is the lot to be enlarged. It will benefit through the area to be out, the triangular area shown in red. It will be merged with that property. And in B52, the outlined area in blue is the lot to be enlarged, and it will, the parcel of the small little triangular area outlined in pink will be added to that. So really what this application represents is kind of making these two lots more regular shaped in area to accommodate future multi-unit residential, in particular apartment dwelling units proposed here that will be dealt with by a future official plan amendment and zone change application to be considered by Tillsonburg Council in the near future. So in terms of the application, maybe, sorry, if I go back to the plates, if I can, this gives a committee an opinion or an idea of what's on the property at the current time, or at least as of 2015. I don't believe anything has changed since then. Both all the parcels in question are currently vacant. So going back to the planning report, the lands are located obviously on the east side of King Street, north of First Street and west of Tilson Ave within the town of Tillsonburg. The lands are currently zoned, or sorry, designated in the official plan as service commercial and have a service commercial zoning on the property. As mentioned, there is a official plan amendment and a zone change application that will be considered by council in the near future to redesignate the lands to high density residential. In terms of the lot to be severed through B51, it's 1,073 square meters in area, or 11,556 square feet in area. The lot to be enlarged to that is 4,265 square meters in area, or just under 46,000 square feet. Excuse me. The lot to be severed through the for B52, the small triangular area is approximately 76 square meters in area, or 820 square feet. And the lot to be enlarged through B2 is 6,322 square meters, or just over 68,000 square feet in area. Obviously, the application really represents a land to make both parcels more regular shaped for future residential purposes. In terms of surrounding land uses, we have a mixture of service commercial uses to the east and north, the daycare center to the north, medium density residential development to the future, vacant service commercial lands to the south, and then the CPR railway to the immediate east. In terms of official plan, the PPS an official plan. Really what we're talking about here is assembling properties to make them more regular shapes. So there's nothing really that offends the provincial policy statement. And currently, even though the lands are designated for service commercial purposes, we feel the application is consistent. There will be a future development application to be considered by council in the near future to potentially change the designation and the zoning. Same carries forward with respect to the zoning. Again, it will be dealt with at an upcoming meeting, but the application really doesn't offend anything from a current zoning perspective, so there's no real requirement to impose any conditions. No issues were raised through the agency circulation. You can see the town staff have acknowledged the development matters will be dealt with at a future official plan amendment, zone change application, as well as the site plan process. There's really no need to imply or impose any additional conditions for this committee, for the committee to consider. No comments from neighboring landowners through the circulation of the application. To quickly summarize from a planning perspective, Mr. Chairman, we feel the applications are appropriate and supportable, and there is a condition for each application that's been prepared for committee's consideration.
Thank you, Ron. Ms. Rosler, do you have any questions concerning the report?
No, Chair. I've reviewed the report and understand I believe I understand the conditions which Mr. Persican has indicated will be the standard ones that apply in to consent applications generally, plus presumably lot merging provisions under the Planning Act. I've reviewed the report and concur that the applications are consistent with the PPS and in conformity with the official plan in respect of lot addition provisions, but also will assist in once regularized, it will assist in making the parcels more suitable for development, and in particular, the development that is proposed for high density residential purposes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rosler. Committee, do you have any questions or concerns? None. Do we still have Peter on board? Nope, looks like we've lost him. Could I have a motion, please, for 20-51-7? Cohen? Unmute, Cohen. There you go.
I was looking for the button. I move that we accept application number B20-51-7, reason with the attached conditions, reason number 1.
Thank you. Seconded by John? Any comments on the motion? Could I have all those in favor? That's unanimous, but not Peter. And could I have a motion for 20-52-7, please?
Oh.
Cohen?
I move that we accept application B20-52-7 with the attached conditions. Again, reason number 1.
Thank you. Seconded. Don? Any comments concerning? All those in favor? Again, unanimous without Peter. Ms. Hauser, your applications have been accepted. And if you just hold on line for a minute, I think Mrs. Teschner has a few comments to make to you, okay?
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair and staff.
Good morning, Barb. Your applications have been approved, so the decisions will be sent out to you within 15 days. And then there is a 20-day appeal period from that date. That likely will take us into the new year. So you likely won't hear from us until after we return back to work in the new year. You have 1 year to meet the condition and to have those properties surveyed, and then the legal documents presented at our office for certification. Also, you can take your signs down now on the property. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Roser.
Oops. Okay. All those in attendance for application B 2054-7, A 20097, George and Clara Ambrose. I believe that James Morgan, there he is in the corner.
Yep. Are you with us, Mr. Morgan?
I am, thank you.
There you go. Now, you're here regarding application B 20-54-7 and A 20-9-7. Is that true?
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Our procedure will be the county will present its report, and then you and the committee will get an opportunity to question or ask questions of that report. Is that acceptable?
It is, thank you.
Thank you. Ron, would you proceed, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me do the share document for the committee's information as shown on plate 1 of the report. The lands to be severed, this property is within the downtown area of the town of Tillsonburg. The outlined area in blue shows the area to be severed, while the lands to be retained are outlined in red. The parcel is obviously located on the southwest corner southwest corner of Broadway and Baldwin within the downtown area of the city, of the town. The intention is to create a new commercial lot and then retain a commercial lot for the same purposes. Applicant has also requested relief to reduce the permitted rear yard reduce it from the required 6 meters to 0 meters in lieu of the new lot area, the new lot configuration. The lands are designated as central business district in the official plan and are zoned central commercial. Both properties contain a 2-story commercial building with a ground floor, commercial component and an upstairs residential unit. And as our understanding, nothing's changing as a result of this application. The lot to be severed is 195.5 square meters in area, or a little over 2,100 square feet in area, and the lot to be retained. The larger parcel is 504.2 square meters, or 5,227 square feet in area. As mentioned, the reduction of the application, includes a request to reduce the required rear yard for both properties. Surrounding land uses are predominantly commercial, fronting on the Broadway and Oxford Street, and in residential uses to the west. Now, as a bit of history for the committee, this application, very similar application, was previously approved by the Land Division Committee previously in 2015. And was granted. However, the certificate was not registered within 2 years, and as a result, the consent lapsed. So they're back now to replicate the exact same application that was previously approved in 2015. In terms of provincial policy statement and official plan policy, I feel the application is in keeping with both documents. The lands are appropriately zoned, with the exception of the rear yard setbacks, which have been requested or varied through the application. No comments have been received through the agency circulation, which are similar to what was received back in 2015. No comments have been received from neighboring landowners through the circulation of the application. And then finally, to quickly summarize, Mr. Chairman, we feel the application is supportable from a planning perspective, and the minor variance meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. And there is recommendations to approve both the minor variance and the consent application.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. Morgan, do you have any questions?
I have no questions for the planner. Just a couple of statements, just on the planning report.
Sure.
One, the property fronts on Broadway and Baldwin Streets. I believe the planner said Oxford and Broadway. And secondly, just by way of history in this, the registry office had withdrawn the deed. It had been registered within the 2 years, but the registry office had withdrawn the deed unbeknownst to myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morgan, there is one condition. Is that condition acceptable?
It is.
Thank you very much. Committee, any questions? Now, Mrs. Teschner, do we need 1 or 2 motions? Okay, could I have a motion for B20-54-7, please? Aaron?
I move that we accept application B20-54-7 with the attached conditions, reason number 1.
Seconded. Diane, any comments concerning the motion? None, all those in favor? That's unanimous, except, oh, Peter, are you back?
I'm here, but I'm having problems with my camera.
Okay,
So
so,
I do agree.
okay, so I'll leave you out of this one, okay?
That's fine. I will vote in by voice, if that's okay.
That's fine with me. So that's
Okay.
unanimous for that one, thank you. And could I have a motion for A20-9, please? Russell?
I move we accept minor variance A20-09-7 with the 1 condition.
Thank you. Seconded? Cohen? There's no condition on that, Russ, but that's fine. All those in favor?
Agree.
Okay. 6 signaled and 1 verbal. Thank you very much. Mr. Morgan, the application and the variance have been accepted.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, if you just hang on 1 second, Mrs. Teschner has a comment or 2 to make with you, okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, James.
Good morning.
The application's been approved, so there'll be a decision that will be sent out to you within 15 days. Then there's a 20-day appeal period from that date. You have 1 year to meet the conditions as outlined on the notice of decision that you will receive. And then present your deeds for certification, and you can now take your sign down.
Thank you very much. Thank you, committee.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye.
There is no one in the town.
There is nobody. Call the next
So the
application, please.
application is application B20-55-3 for Stefan and Malgorzata Werder.
Okay, committee, there is no representation on this one. So Ron, if you'd just proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application for the committee's consideration is an addition to a non-farm rural residential lot within the township of Norwich. As shown on plate 1 of the planning report, the area outlined in red is to be added to the smaller property, or the small property outlined in blue on as represents the lot to be enlarged, and then the farm parcel, there's the lot to be retained that's shown and outlined in green. Plate 2 gives the existing, shows what the lands are used for at the current time. And plate 3 gives the aerial photo in a little greater detail of the lot to be severed and the lot to be enlarged. So moving forward with respect to the planning report. As mentioned, the application represents an addition to a non-farm rural residential lot within the township of Norwich. The lands are located on the north side of Mall Road between Oxford Road 13 and Middletown Line. The lands are currently designated as agricultural reserve in the official plan, and the lot to be severed and retained are currently zoned A2, and the lot to be enlarged as a residential existing zone. In terms of existing uses, the lot to be severed is currently has vacant agricultural lands. The lot to be retained contains agricultural lands with cash cropping, and then with existing farm buildings and accessory dwelling. And then finally, the lot to be enlarged contains an existing residential dwelling and a detached garage, or an attached garage, sorry. The applicant has indicated that the intent is to add additional lands to the lot to be enlarged to accommodate a future accessory dwelling, accessory structure. The parcel to be severed is approximately 2,650 square meters, or about 0.65 acres in area. The retained lot, the farm parcel, is currently about 25.2 hectares in area, or about 62.2 acres. And then finally, the lot to be enlarged is approximately an acre in area.
Ron, let me pause you for a minute. We can't see the map.
Oh. Can't see the map?
No. We saw the earlier stuff.
So, sorry, Mr. Chairman, you can't see anything?
Not now, no. We could before.
Okay, let me.
Okay, there we go.
That's plate 1.
Is that better?
Yep, it is, Ron. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what I did. Okay. So
Again.
is it gone?
Yep.
What did I do? What am I doing here?
Yep, you're okay there.
Sorry?
You're okay now.
Am I?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's go with that then. So in terms of the provincial policy statement, the application represents 2 different components which allow for the lot creation and lot adjustments within the prime agricultural area. Obviously, the first component is the fact that it represents an agriculture or a lot addition. There's really no lot creation in this particular case. In terms of provincial policy, in terms of OP policies, the application again represents a lot addition within ag reserve area. There's really nothing that offends the OP policies. In terms of zoning, the lands to be severed will be required to be rezoned in order that they match the zoning of the lot to be enlarged, to ensure that we don't have any dual zoning situations in the future for the landowner. In terms of agency comments, they're fairly straightforward. The drainage superintendent for the township has requested drainage reapportionment for the lands to be severed that are reflected in the recommended conditions. No comments have been received from the neighboring landowners as a result of the circulation of the application. So moving forward, Mr. Chairman, the only other element here is that the lands to be enlarged were actually created through consent back in 2002. So to enable the lots to be severed and to be merged with the lands to be enlarged, the applicant, the lot to be enlarged will be required to convey a 1 foot by 1 foot square to the township to allow the proper merging of the two parcels in question, and that's been reflected as a recommended condition as well. Subject to any other questions, there is a recommendation to support the application. So that's the extent of my presentation.
Thanks, Ron. Committee, any questions? Could I have a motion, please? John?
I move that we accept B 20-55-3 application with the 5 recommendations. Read one.
Okay. Second it. Russell? Any comments on the motion? All those in favor? And we have Peter back visually. So that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
So we should have in attendance, Michael Clark.
Yep, I'm here.
Perfect. So all those in attendance for application B 20-56-5, David Clendenning and Christian Specht.
Good morning, Mr. Clark.
Good morning.
You're here with regards to application B 20-56-5, is that correct?
Yep, I'm the planner on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you very much. Our procedure here will have the county read its report, and then you will get an you'll get a chance to actually comment or ask questions, and then the committee will get its chance. Okay? Ron, if you'll proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see, hopefully this works a little better this time. Okay, so as shown on plate 1 of the planning report for the committee's information, this application represents a two components. There's an agricultural lot addition and then also the retention of a lot to be created for non-farm rural residential purposes. The lands as shown on plate 1 are located on the south side of Road 60 between the 15th line and 17th line within the township of Zora. In terms of maybe if I go to plate 1, it kind of gives the committee an idea of what is currently located on the properties in question. And then also there's been plates that have been prepared by the applicant, by the planner on behalf of the applicant that are also attached to the report. In terms of the official plan policies, the lands are designated as agricultural reserve. However, there is special policies that would permit the creation of the non-farm rural residential lot, and I'll get into that in a moment as to why those policies are already in place. The lands, all of the lands are currently zoned agricultural use, or sorry, general agricultural in the township zoning bylaw. So in terms of existing uses, The severed parcel is currently vacant of any buildings, but is used for cash cropping purposes. The lands to be retained are contain a single detached dwelling and an accessory building. And then finally, the large agricultural parcel, if I go back to plate 1, is the lands outlined in green, contain a number of buildings associated with a dairy operation, along with a single detached or an accessory single detached dwelling. The lands to be severed, they're outlined in red, are approximately 19.56 or 54 hectares in area, or 48 acres in area. The lands to be retained, which is for non-farm rural residential purposes, are to be about approximately 4.46 hectares in area, or a little over an acre in area. And then finally, the lands to be enlarged are 73.5 hectares in area, or 181.6 acres in area. In terms of provincial policy, there is 2 scenarios that would allow for the lot creation within a prime ag area, one being for agricultural purposes, the second being for a surplus farm residence resulting from a farm consolidation. In this particular case, this application does also check off both of the questions or issues with from a provincial policy perspective. Now, the other element to this is that there is the lands are entirely contained within a identified mineral aggregate area, and there is protection of those policies in the PPS, and that is where the official plan amendment comes into play, which as mentioned, I will detail in a moment. And really what the policies are trying to do is to avoid the creation of conflicting land uses near or within a mineral aggregate resource area. And that's to ensure that access to the resources is as easy as possible, with as few conflicts as possible. And those typically, when we talk about sort of conflicting land uses or sensitive land uses, a residential use within a mineral aggregate area is considered to be a sensitive land use. In terms of official plan policies, there is policies that enable farm consolidations where appropriate. The application does satisfy that particular matter. In terms of the creation of the non-farm rural residential lot, as the committee is aware, there is a point system in place where we consider the creation of these type of applications so that they are done in an impartial and a consistent manner. Any applications that accumulate plus 12 points or greater would lead to typically a negative recommendation. But in this particular case, we've reviewed the application and it comes up with plus 13 points. 10 points are associated with the fact that it is surrounded immediately by agricultural land uses. It does also accumulate plus 5 points because it is in the middle of an aggregate resource area, but it does benefit from the surplus farm dwelling, so there is a negative 2 points. So that's where it comes up with the plus 13. That said, the application has gone, or the proposal has gone through an official plan amendment that was considered by County Council and passed by County Council earlier this year that would enable the application to move forward. And quite simply, this is because of the fact that everything is existing. There's no new lot configuration. Well, the lot configuration is being changed slightly, but there is no new lots being created. It's just being adjusted. So in this particular case, the OP was passed because of the fact it's a reflection of what currently exists on the property. So there is no new sensitive land uses that are being introduced through the severance application. In terms of zoning, the parcel to be enlarged and the severed parcel are appropriately zoned. The lands to be retained, which is the non-farm rural residential lot, would need to be rezoned to rural residential to reflect its intended use. The other matter that would probably need to reflected in the specific zoning for that property is the fact that the current accessory building on that property is oversized, so it would need to be reflected in the site-specific zoning by Township Council. No issues were raised through the agency circulation of the application. And as a bit of late correspondence, I believe council or committee already has it. There was a resolution in support of the application passed by Zora Council. No comments have been received through the circulation of the application to neighboring landowners. So moving forward, Mr. Chairman, there is specific policies that would enable the application to be considered by the committee for favorable consideration. Again, we're talking about land uses that are already in place, or really just kind of redrawing some of the lot lines to enable this application to move forward. And there is a recommendation to approve the application subject to the 4 conditions for the committee's consideration.
Thank you, Ron. Committee, do you have any questions? Could I have a motion, please?
Oh, Mr.
Oh, Mr. Clark, I ignored you up there in the corner. Do you have any?
It's fine. I don't have anything else to add. Ron gave a good overview of the application. Like you said, we've come forward earlier in the year with the official plan, and we're bringing the zonings going forward on the 16th of December. So that should all hopefully be in place soon as well.
Okay, there are 4 conditions attached. Do you understand and accept all 4?
Yes, we do.
Thank you very much. Now, committee, you have your chance. Diane?
Would you like a motion now, Mr. Chairman?
No, just comments first, Diane. No comments? Now you can do your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that consent application B2056-5 be approved with the 4 conditions shown, reason 1.
Thank you. Seconded. Aaron's, any comments on the motion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Your application's been accepted, Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
If you would just stay on the line for a minute or two, Mrs. Teschner has a couple of comments to make to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
The application's been approved, so we'll be sending out your decision within 15 days. There's a 20-day appeal period from that date, which will likely take us close to Christmas or a little after. So you'll probably be hearing from us in the new year as to the 20-day appeal period being over. You will have 1 year to meet the conditions as outlined on the notice of decision and to present your documents to us for deed stamping. And
Okay.
if you do that within the year, then unfortunately we'll have to start all over again.
Understood.
Oh, and you can take your sign down now.
Okay. Great.
You.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
So David Rowe is not in attendance.
I thought he was earlier.
He looked like he was.
Well, we'll proceed without him.
All those in attendance for application B2041-3, A20083 for Wesley Simpson.
Okay, since there appears to be no representation, Ron, would you proceed, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the committee has a copy of a late correspondence from Mr. Rowe. I think was part of the package that Louise distributed with you, and it's a request for a deferral on the matter. And I would suggest perhaps, given the given the request. I think Mr. Rose wants to have some time to look at the application, just to kind of rejig their lot lines and see if there's some other type of configuration that might be appropriate. So considering that, I haven't heard anything different from Mr. Rowe, but I would suggest perhaps it would be appropriate for the committee to consider a deferral on the matter. I think he's indicated a month. I don't know if you necessarily need to specify the time. If it comes back earlier, or if it can come back in a month, great. If not, then we'll get it back to the committee as soon as possible, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Okay, committee, any questions? Could I have a motion of deferral, please? Terrence?
I move that we defer application B2041-3 and A20-08-3. And it's probably best not to put a time on there because our meeting's further than a month away this time, right?
Very good.
Just leave it open-ended.
Yeah, we'll just leave it open-ended then. Okay? Second it? John? Any comments concerning the motion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Second here.
There's my copy up there.
And if I could please ask the committee, could you please put that in a safe place? Hang on to that report. And I'll probably forget to send it to you again, but then I don't have to send a great big package again. I can just send the supplementary report. Because I think what's going to happen if he changes the application, it'll be nice to have both anyway.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And I think we were supposed to have Mr. Klein. Yep, there he is.
Yep, there he is.
So all those in attendance for application B2043 and A20073, trustees of Curry's United Church.
Good morning, Mr. Klein.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
You're here with regards to B20-40-3, is that correct?
That's correct.
Our procedure these days is the county will give its report, then you'll get your chance to ask questions or make comments, and then the committees. Okay?
Understood.
Thank you. Ron, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll do the share document here. Hopefully it works. So everybody can see the maps, hopefully. So the application for the committee's consideration is a creation of a lot within the rural cluster of Curry's within the township of Norwich. And specifically, as shown on plate 1 of the planning report, the intention is to sever off the former Pleasant View Church from the balance of the property. That retained lot outlined in blue contains the Pleasant View Cemetery. The lands are located on the north side of Curry's Road, just immediately east of Highway 59. The applicant has indicated that the future intent would be to convert the existing church converted into a single attached dwelling by way of a future zone change application. There is also a number of minor variances that have been applied for by the applicant that I will reference for the committee's information in a moment. The lands are currently designated as rural cluster within the official plan, and all of the properties both properties in question, are currently zoned institutional in the township zoning bylaw. From an existing use perspective, the severed lands are currently contain the existing former church, and the retained lands contain the Pleasant View Cemetery. The severed lands are intended to be approximately 1,130 square meters in area, or about 12,163 square feet in area. The retained lot is 2,721 square meters in area, or a little under 30,000 square feet in area. As detailed, the applicant has applied for a number of minor variances. The first is for the minimum lot area to reduce the severed lands from 3,700 square meters or just under 40,000 square feet to 1,130 square feet, or 1,130 square meters. Then the other minor variance is for the severed lands is to reduce the lot frontage from the required 40 square meters to 25 square meters. The next is to reduce the minimum lot area for the retained lands from 3,700 square meters to 2,721 square meters. And then also to reduce the lot depth for both lots from required 50 meters to 40 meters. Now, in terms of some additional background that is contained in the report, the existing church is served by an existing well that's located to the immediate north, which is the lands that are owned by the township, which has the ball diamond on it. And as part of that, the applicant has approached the township and they're to add approximately 280 square meters that would contain the entirety of the well and add that to the parcel so that they would be wholly contained as part of the lot to be severed. That is currently being, my understanding is that transfer process is currently ongoing, but it has not been completed at this point. In terms of additional background, the applicant has also undertaken a stage 1 archaeological assessment. And then basically it's to determine the extent of the burials, to ensure that there is no archaeological potential on the severed lands, to ensure that they're wholly contained on the any of the burial plots that are associated with the cemetery are wholly contained on the lot to be retained. Based on the review that was prepared by a licensed archaeologist, they determined that all the plots are in fact contained on the lot to be retained and none of them are the lands to be severed. From a surrounding land use perspective, we have mainly existing residential development that are associated with the rural cluster. And obviously we have the recreational property to the north, which is currently owned by the township. In terms of the provincial policy statement, the lands are identified as a settlement, and really settlement areas in the PPS are to be the intent of focus for growth and development opportunities within the township. The one element that is of concern, though, is from a planning perspective, is that section 1664 of the PPS speaks to where municipal sewers are not available, the land shall be appropriately sized where there's individual septic and sewage system requirements, septic and water requirements to ensure that they do not pose any future long-term hazards to neighboring landowners as well as the landowners of this property in question. Again, basically it's saying that the lands need to be appropriately sized. In terms of the official plan, again, the lands are designated as rural cluster within the official plan. And just from a background perspective, the rural cluster is really the lowest form of settlement that's identified within the county official plan. They typically have been, they identify historical clusters of non-farm rural residential development. They reflect the fact that they're not serviced and not intended really to be growth areas, and there's only limited areas for infill development on appropriately sized lots. Now, the other element too that's of interest with this application is the fact that the church has been identified as a heritage resource within the county official plan, meaning that it has significant architectural, cultural, social, and political and economic history. And it also has been identified as an architectural and historic value by the township itself. So any changes to the interior of the structure, exterior of the structure would require approval from the township's Heritage Committee before doing so. Official plan policies do speak to, again, the preservation and enhancement of properties that do have historical or architectural significance. In terms of the zoning of the property, as mentioned, it is currently zoned institutional. The applicant has requested a number of variances to recognize the proposed lot area of both the lot to be severed and the lot to be retained. In terms of agency comments, the drainage superintendent indicated that a drainage assessment reapportionment is not required, primarily because of the fact that the cost of the apportionment will probably exceed the anticipated cost of the future maintenance of the Chapman or Lampman drain itself. I think the most important comments to consider in this particular case come from the township's building department, who had indicated that through a search of the township's records with respect to the septic system, there was no details that have been provided to the exact extent and location of the septic system on the property. The applicant has provided some information as based on their best information on the sketch, which I believe is plate 3 of the report. However, the CBO has indicated that he couldn't verify that that is 100% accurate. And the other element too is they couldn't confirm the capacity of the existing system or its ability to accommodate any future loads to the septic system if the use was changed to residential as intended. The other element that the CBO has indicated that there's concerned about the separation between the proposed well to the north and the septic system. They couldn't verify whether it does meet the requirements of the interior building code to ensure that there's appropriate separation between the two elements that service the proposed lot to be severed. And therefore, there's concerns whether the application is appropriately sized to accommodate either the intended use as currently exist or future residential purposes. There is additional comments that have been received that are part of late correspondence that are committees should be aware of. The Public Works Department provided requirements to identify road widening along the county road and also site triangle requirements. And then finally, the comments were received from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority indicated there was no objection to the application. In terms of public consultation, the application was, there was no comments received from the neighboring landowners through the circulation of the application. So to summarize the concerns, I think, Mr. Chairman, the report is clear that there's concerns about the sizes of the property not being appropriately sized because of the fact that the variance has been requested to reduce the lot area requirements for it to accommodate a residential use. They're approximately about 50% of what the bylaw requires. And in actually 70% reduction of the institutional requirements. So that causes some concerns from a lot creation perspective in a non-service settlement, which is what Curry's is. There is the other elements of the historical value of the church being changed that would require some input from the township's Heritage Committee. Based on this, Mr. Chairman, and there's concerns also reflected by the CBO for the township, there is a recommendation to not support the severance application, and also concerns that the degree of the variance that have been requested do not represent minor variances, and in fact should not be supported either.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. Klein, do you have comments concerning the report? I suspect you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, please bear with me. There was, I think, a lot of information in this application, and there's a lot of points I do want to cover. I'm going to try not to miss them and try to keep them in order. Just by a little bit of way of background too, as Mr. Verstegen noted, with this being an existing church, this church has ceased operations. It is currently a vacant building right now that is attached to the cemetery. As a part of this, they've realized that they're going to clean up some of their property issues. As Mr. Verstegen noted, the well was not actually located on their property. And as noted, I believe on plate 3, there has been a signed agreement of purchase and sale with the Township of Norwich to actually to complete the conveyance of that additional land. We're just waiting on a registered reference plan. So that is going to address the well issue. There was also some issues with respect to the size of the cemetery and ownership of the cemetery. We've also addressed that as well, but it's not a part of this application. With respect to the planning report, I believe that we've looked at it at the planning report, and we noted that a lot of this application, it does actually support, it gets the support of the provincial policy statement and the official plan. Just if I can make a couple highlights, I would just kind of respectfully disagree with the planning department's opinion that this property is not sufficiently large enough. In the past, I guess I've been doing this long enough, I've seen that our planning department in the Township of Norwich has supported infill development on vacant lands with a septic on lots as small as 6,400 square feet. Our property is double that size in this particular situation. It's also important to note that our property has existing services. We're not developing new services. We have an existing well, an existing septic. When they talk about the property not being appropriately sized, this is an existing lot. There is no other lot configuration. We've done an archaeological assessment. We've actually tried to maximize the amount of area that can go with the church building without disturbing the graves. With respect to future intent, and yes, the future intent would be to convert this property to residential. However, that would be addressed through a rezoning as well as a change of use permit, where if there was concerns with respect to services on this property. It's been noted that our client has actually retained 2 separate septic companies, although they were not asked by the planning department, have retained 2 different septic companies who have actually attended the site, and I believe one of them has actually had correspondence to the township, not to the CBO, but to the township, confirming that the property is sufficiently large enough to put a replacement and larger septic system on it. Furthermore, in terms of the rural cluster Curries, I've identified that there's approximately 35 residential lots that make up the rural cluster of Curries. I'm not a surveyor. I just went on the Oxford County map, and I was able to identify that approximately 24 of those 35 lots do not satisfy the existing R1 zoning requirement, which is approximately the 30,000 square feet. In fact, there is approximately 5 properties who are all on the north side of Curries Road. The other 5 are on the west side of Highway 59 that are approximately 15,000 square feet, which with the inclusion of the property we're going to acquire from the Township of Norwich is the exact same size as our property. I also believe that in this particular application and for what the committee's hearing in terms of the severance is that we're not talking about a zone change at the moment. We're still talking about severing the church from the cemetery. And if we're unable to do the severance, it effectively sterilizes the property because our church building is now connected to our cemetery, which means that we're not going to be able to use that property, sell that property, convert its use of that property. And using some of the language in the provincial policy statement and the official plan that without the severance, we're discouraging development in an existing rural cluster. We're abandoning a commitment to our heritage resource as the church will become vacant and fall into disrepair, denying the opportunity for some level of regeneration of the Curries rural cluster. So if the severance is approved and it's not even conditional on a zone change, we'll at least have a standalone institutional zone property that provides some other opportunities for that property. So whether it's another religious denomination, childcare, something under that zoning who can use its existing services. But for future use of that property, there are other thresholds that will be dealt with. That is the septic through a change of use permit, they'll have to go through a site plan and septic. If they have to do a change of use for residential, they'll go through the existing heritage bylaw and designations to ensure that they maintain the heritage resource and the historical and archaeological significance of the property. But by denying the severance, we're abandoning all that. So it's my submission that this application and the severance should be approved and it should be approved without a condition of rezoning so that it can stay as an existing institutional property with its existing services. And furthermore, because of that late correspondence that came in through the Public Works, I know I'm talking about a lot of stuff. Their suggestion of a road widening and site triangle would effectively remove all of the property in front of the church, and the site triangle would be on the church. So I understand that that's a good idea when the property warrants or has the ability to give land. But in this case, because it's a well over 100-year-old church that existed long before these roads became more major, we just don't have the space or the room to actually give it and still have use of this property. Thank you, committee.
Thank you, Gord. Ron, would you like to reply, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as a couple of comments raised by Mr. Klein, as far as the historical development within the Currys itself, and the number of lots that are undersized, that's not surprising. We're talking about historical development that were developed with the development standards of that day. The zoning has come along, has replaced a lot of the previous zoning requirements, which were probably substantially less than the minimum lot area requirement is now. And that was based on the fact that through review and input from public health, that the lot area requirements for that area were undersized. And it's not just simply specific to Currys, it's talking about the settlements for anything that's on a partially serviced or an unserviced lot. So it's not surprising. What we're talking about here is we're trying to plan forward by developing lots that are appropriately sized to accommodate so they do not take existing situations where and make them potentially worse than they potentially are at the current time. And that's really kind of what the provincial policy statement says, as well as the official plan, is planning forward thinking to ensure that lots are appropriately sized and not setting the minimum threshold for creation of a lot just simply because the lot is undersized. So we have to create another undersized lot to kind of, two wrongs don't make a right, so to speak. With respect to the comments from Public Works, I believe what they had done is they had looked at that to ensure that there wasn't going to be encroachment or taking any lands that included the church. Beyond that, I really can't offer any comments. I know that Heather was the planner that dealing with that, had insisted that Public Works be sure that they were accurate with their requirements, because I don't think they believe or they reflect the normal standards of what the county Public Works asked for in terms of site triangles or road widening. I think they have been reduced to accommodate as a best case scenario. Beyond that, that's probably about the extent of my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ron. Committee, any questions, comments? Cohen?
Through the chair to either Mr. Verstegen or the applicant, I had difficulty looking at those two buildings on the first plate there with the red and blue coloring. There was that large shed at the back there. Is that the second structure you see there on that plate, like to the north? It's just that there's two buildings that appear on there, but when I was looking at the site, to me it kind of looked like there was only one. Like I don't. Just trying to clarify that.
Maybe Gord, you can probably add to this. I believe you're talking about there's an accessory building on there, and I don't know. I haven't been on the site. I can't verify this, but I'm not sure. This air photo was taken in 2015, so I don't know. Has it been removed since that time, Gord?
Hi, through the chair, my understanding, I attended the site yesterday as well too. And just there's the one shed that is, I guess, identified in that red kind of border on plate one, that larger structure that's identified on plate one. I don't believe it exists there anymore either. It's not present anymore.
Okay, so if through the agreement with the township, the border is going to be extended to well beyond that that second structure you see to the north there. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I can't 100% determine that. I know that we're acquiring 10 additional meters north of our red boundary line. So
okay.
If you attended the site and there was a little bit of snow, I went there yesterday, there were stakes in the ground that kind of identified the new lot lines. But I can't, because that building wasn't there, I can't confirm that. I would have gone as far north as that.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
just to elaborate that, I think, Mr. Chairman, if the plate 3 shows the enlarged area that and shows the additional 10.2 meters that Mr. was referencing in the plan report.
Okay. Colin, you still had more to go?
Yeah. Has there been any discussion with the township about potentially purchasing additional land in order to enlarge the property to address the concerns of the county in some manner?
Gord?
Yeah, through the chair, I believe the applicant hasn't made further communication with the township requesting additional land. I guess up till when we received the plan report, we didn't expect that this was going to be an issue. I also, I would suggest that removing more public community land that the Curry's rural cluster uses for their kind of community would be more ideal to have that land for the community rather than us grabbing more land to satisfy a zoning requirement, which would put a potential septic system. I don't think it would ever be used for an additional septic system going further north.
Okay. Anyway, Aaron?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Ron. Are the additional lands being taken into consideration when the comments are made regarding the septic system?
Mr. Chairman, yes, they are. I think the planning report actually reflects the fact that if you take what is identified as the lands to be severed, which is about 12,000 acres, 12,000 acres, 12,000 square feet, plus the additional 3,000 square feet for the additional 10 meters that incorporate the well. I think the planning report basically details that it represents about 15,000 square feet, which is still a 50% reduction of what would be required for a residential use. And then it still represents a 70% reduction from what would be typically for minimum lot area for an institutional use. So yes, it has been factored into.
Okay, one more question then. How much square footage is required for a residential septic system?
The requirement is 2,800 square meters or approximately 30,000 square feet.
For just the septic system area?
Well, sorry, for a residential lot. For a septic system, that's kind of more to for the actual issue of the permits, CBO to determine. I can't give you that number specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Gord?
Yeah, I would like to further add that there have been lots. So although the R1 zoning or this 2,800 square meters that Mr. Verstegen has referenced, I've become intimately aware that this planning department has supported smaller, much smaller ability to develop on lots with septics. Actually, I think Mr. Verstegen, you and I were intimately a part of that one down in the village of Otterville, where they have water but still septic. But I also know that in this particular situation, we're talking about, again, a church and a cemetery. This is, it's not going to create an undesirable precedent. This is something that at least gives the opportunity for the church building and that portion of property to continue on. That alternative of denying a severance is keeping that church building with the cemetery. And that building's not going to be used anymore. So we lose our heritage resource as it becomes abandoned. And ultimately, if it gets too far down the escalation as these abandoned cemeteries occur, it becomes a burden on townships. So the ability that we're able to try to create an existing institutional lot out of our existing services, I suggest is good planning practice.
Anyone else? Diane?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would assume that converting this from a institutional church building to residential would have tax implications, property tax implications.
I
Gord?
believe that would be the case, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Diane?
Follow up, please, through you, Mr. Chairman. The cemetery will continue to be owned by the trustees. And I'm wondering, is it finished? Is there future revenue? Are there any further burials that can be done there, or is it basically finished?
Gord?
Through the chair, it is my understanding that the cemetery is full, that it's not going to be definitely not a revenue generating situation, but rather the trustees for the Careers United Church, I think, have to create a separate board, a cemetery board that will have to maintain the cemetery.
Okay, anyone else? Cohen? Push the button, Cohen. There you go.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Just for the triangle that the I believe it was a township that they want to have for their purposes. Is that going to be just in front of the church to do a right-hand turn there from Curry's Road going north onto the 59? Is that correct?
Ron or Gord, either one.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if the committee has the planning report, or I can do the share. If you look at plate 1 of the planning report, you'll notice on the opposite side of Highway 59 and Curry's Road, the lot that has the RR zoning on it, there is a taken off of it, and it's really just for visibility purposes. It's just to ensure that it's part of the road allowance to ensure that there's no structures can be built there to help for visibility purposes for that's on 59 traveling south and then turning west or east onto Curry's Road.
Okay, so perhaps then, no matter what the committee decides here, the either recommendation, like on both options that we have here, we should put in perhaps an amendment stating that goes to the county then?
Well, if the committee can choose to support the application subject to a number of conditions, you can include that as a condition that the road widening and site triangle be provided to the county as per the county's comments.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Gord.
Just if Mr. Verstegen would be so kind as to maybe put up plate 3, the applicant's sketch, because some of those setbacks and those numbers are identified from a draft reference plan we have from a surveyor. So I just think it's important to note when we have the brick building, the church building, what you see on the front of it, that number for a setback from the existing building, not the stairs, the building, is 5.4 meters to the existing Curry's Road. So when the Public Works is requesting a road widening of 5 meters from County Road or Oxford Road 40, 5 meters takes us to 1 foot of that building. And an additional 5 by 5 meter site triangle would cross over the brick building. It's also worth to note, because I had to look this up, that we have in the Township of Norwich zoning bylaw in the general provisions, I believe it's section 5.24, that indicates that on corner lots, that these site triangles, so even though it may be owned by a private owner, there are restrictions on what you can do within a site triangle on private property. In this case, we have a church. It's not going to get moved. It's 150 years old.
Okay, thanks, Gord. Russell, you had your hand up?
I was just going to ask Gord, was that the maximum amount of land that the township was willing to let go to the church?
Yep.
Through the chair, my understanding is the committee or the applicant, just asked for the adequate land to grab the well and put the well on the church's property. And they did not ask for more, so I don't know if the township would be agreeable to more.
Would it be worthwhile asking that?
Through the chair, we could ask for it. I think that question was raised beforehand, and I think from a practical, I'm sorry if I say from a practical standpoint versus a planning standpoint, grabbing more land along County Road 59 so that we have just sufficient lot area that isn't going to be used for a septic system in the future is maybe not practical.
I was just thinking they could be used for septic if it had to have that extra land to warrant a septic system. So, and also the comment that Colin was making about that other building that he doesn't know what it is. I believe that is where the old Curry's Hall existed at one time, and that outline could be showing up as where it originated from.
Hey, Russell, Diane? Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just, it's a beautiful building. It's wonderful. It's being maintained as a heritage building. I'm assuming there's been no outreach to other potential congregations that might be interested in taking over ownership, maybe leasing back the cemetery to the trustees board in order to not have to sever and not have to deal with these issues.
Gord?
Yeah, through the chair, I don't believe that's been entertained. I do know though from other churches with cemeteries generally, the idea of leasing a building is a little bit more difficult. Again, I don't know all the trustees, but nobody wants to get in the business of leasing a church building, and the idea of separating again your cemetery of your current denomination from somebody who may want to use a church of a different denomination is generally what people would want to do.
Okay, anyone else? Russell?
Gord, you mentioned that there was different types of septic systems, and one that was put in Otterville. Could you explain how those were working, what you know of them?
Gord?
Through the chair, yes. So the one in Otterville it was a 2010 issue that had the exact same 30,000 square feet issue. It was an existing lot, and they proposed, or the applicant in that one proposed putting in a more concentrated, and I think the term is almost like an eco flow septic system. So rather than the conventional system, they put in a more smaller blueprint or footprint for the septic system, which requires more annual maintenance. And my understanding from the applicant is when they spoke to Jerry Knoop of Denby Environmental Services, Mr. Knoop also explained that this property potentially could do conventional, but definitely could do one of these eco-flow systems that just have additional costs to install and additional annual maintenance costs.
Anyone else? Russell?
No.
I get the feeling, gentlemen, quite frankly, that there's a lot of issues here that are still wide open. Mr. Klein, do you feel that if you deferred your application some time and be able to spend more time with the township and the county, would you be able to come to a satisfactory conclusion for all parties? Gord?
Through the chair, I don't know, because we don't have any more land really to get. And I know there's been some questions about the township of Norwich just using more of their park land or their land that's used for the community park, but it's kind of an existing system. And admittedly, had the planning department inquired, and we went out and spent thousands of dollars on this archaeological assessment, which has delayed our application. And had the planning department advised us at that time there was concerns with respect to private services on that property, we would have been afforded the time to probably go out and actually get written statements that we could have presented. But I can't guarantee that deferring this application is going to change county's opinion, since they didn't bring it up to us initially.
Is it county's opinion, or is it also the township's opinion, since they're the ones who govern the septic system size?
Yeah, through the chair, I apologize. I shouldn't have said county. I should have said the planning department. You're right. It was the planning department on behalf of the township.
Okay. Anyone else? Diane?
Further to your point, Mr. Chairman, given that the biggest issue appears to be with the town's building department and the issue of septic, the chair's question as to whether or not there might be some benefit to spending some extra time trying to see if maybe some of the options that the engineers have come in might satisfy the building department.
Aaron?
If I could just interject, I mean, we're just approving a severance from a cemetery. If we approve this severance, the building department still has to sort out the septic system afterward. So as far as I'm concerned, I think this is probably one of the best uses for an old church, and I would be prepared to make a motion for that.
So your suggestion is that you feel that all we're looking at here is the separation of the church land from the cemetery, and anything going forward from that would have to be resolved anyways?
That's correct. The building department would have to issue a change of use and authorize a building permit, in which at what point in time the septic system would have to be considered anyway.
Mr. Klein, what's your opinion on that?
Through to the chair, I 100% agree. That's what's going to happen. So a severance doesn't automatically give as of right a change of use. It will be the change of use permit, and the requirements of the change of use permit will dictate what potentially could, I guess, the future intended use of the property.
Ron, what's your opinion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I go back to the comments from the CBO, I think there's a couple elements here that are kind of key to this issue of the septic system, not knowing where the exact extent of it is, not knowing what the separation requirement is, because there is the building code does require a certain setback between the well and the septic system. So, and whether or not that can be maintained, I think is one of the questions that the CBO has raised. So to me, there are still some red flags here that I don't know can be that CBO has been able to address, because they don't have the records on hand, so he can't. That's why he's come up with his recommendation to indicate that there is concerns with this proposal.
So if I'm hearing you all, if the application is accepted, there are still controlling aspects of our system that would be overcome before any use of the building can be done. Is that clear? Am I wrong or am I right? Let me try it again. If we make accept the application, the use of the building still has to go through all kinds of hoops and jumps before it can be accepted. Is that true? You have to have a building use permit issued, et cetera, et cetera. Have I given that much thought? Geez, everybody, I'm impressed here. Aaron, you had your hand up?
I might put it this way, Gord, if this property was severed and continued to be used as a church, nothing would change and everything would be fine.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's right. It's all our existing services are already there. So some of those, raising the issue about the existing septic and the existing well, it's existent the whole time. So nothing's changed by having a severance, other than we've now separated a cemetery from a church building.
Okay, any other comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Russell?
I would have to agree with what Aaron has said as far as his thoughts.
Okay, are we at the point that we need a motion? Ron? Oh, Diane?
Sorry, can I just ask a question, please, through you, Mr. Chairman? Is the suggestion then, I understand the planning document that the variances were to allow the severed parcel to be converted, the use. So is the suggestion just to consider the severance application and not the minor variance application?
Aaron?
To answer your question, probably Diane, it looks to me like the minor variances are just for the setbacks on the lot itself.
Ron?
Just I think just for Diane and Aaron's, the requested minor variances are to reduce the lot area requirements for both lot areas, for both the severed lot and the retained lot from the current institutional zoning requirement. They're not requesting a variance to reduce what might be the residential use or what that's down the road, because that would be dealt with through a future zone change if they choose to go that route. So I think the only way if the committee chooses to approve the consent application, you have to consider the variances as well, because otherwise then you're creating lots that do not conform, or there is no recognition that they meet the minimum requirements for the institutional zoning. So I think they come part and parcel together. If that kind of helps.
Anyone else? We all talk. Todd?
It's just like in my head, this is a tough one for me. I'm just trying to mull it all over. It's just, to me, everyone's making good points all around. So let's just get someone to make a motion and then we'll go from there.
Diane? You want to make a motion, Diane?
I'm with Con right now. I'm still mulling it over too.
We can't mull too long here.
Yeah.
Russell?
I'll make a motion that we accept application B 20-40-3.
Do you have conditions, Russell?
I'm trying to find them right now. With two conditions.
And what would those conditions be?
That we accept the proposed application granting a severance.
Ron?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if the committee chooses, we do have a list of conditions that would be for the committee's consideration if you want to move forward with that motion.
Okay, Cohen?
Just in case it's not on there about that triangle, I would like to add that in there as well. I do recognize the applicant's concerns in regards to that, but I think the main point, what they're trying to do there is to ensure that should it ever be converted, that they're not going to put up like a giant fence or something like that. So just for safety's sake, for traffic, I do think it's important to get that in there.
How do we get?
My opinion.
Okay, how do we get to see these conditions, Ron?
I'm not sure. Louise, do you have the conditions, or maybe you want me to read them?
Yeah. You want to, are we going to wait for a seconder, or are we going to?
Well, yeah, okay, shall we do a seconder then, please? Peter? Peter seconded. Now we need to establish some conditions in our comments on the motion, right?
Okay.
So go ahead and read them. Gord, you
Okay.
Currently, I'm good, yep.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
So the conditions for the consent, Number one, the County of Oxford Department of Public Works advised Secretary Treasurer of the County of Land Division Committee that all financial requirements of the County of Oxford with respect to the provision of water to the subject property have been complied with. Number two, if required, a road widening of 3 meters or 9.8 feet from the center line of Oxford Road 59. Wait a minute.
5 meters.
Sorry, I've got the wrong.
I was gonna say, that's not the conditions I have.
Sorry, let's wait a second here. Louise, those conditions are the wrong ones, Louise.
Yeah, I sent them to you. I sent you 2 sets.
2 sets?
No, one for this and one for another application.
Oh.
This is 2043.
I don't see them. Apologize, Mr. Chairman.
You want me to read them?
I was going to say, could we have Louise read her set, Ron?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Louise?
If required, a road widening of 5 meters, 16.4 feet from the center line of Curry's Road, Oxford Road 40, along the frontage of the lot to be severed, be dedicated to the County of Oxford, free of all costs and encumbrances to the satisfaction of the County Public Works. If required, a site triangle of 5.0 meters by 5.0 meters, 16.4 feet by 16.4 feet at the corner of Curry's Road, Oxford Road 40, and Highway 59, bracket Oxford Road 59, bracket, be dedicated to the County of Oxford, free of all costs and encumbrances to the satisfaction of the County of Oxford Public Works Department. The portion of land containing the existing well serving the church on the lot to be severed be conveyed and consolidated with the lot to be severed. The owner provide confirmation of the location of the existing septic system for the lot to be severed with a view to ensuring the entire extent of the existing septic system serving the lot to be severed is located wholly within the confines of the proposed lot to be severed to the satisfaction of the Township of Norwich Chief Building Department. I'm sorry, Township of Norwich Building Department. If required, drainage assessment reapportionment be undertaken pursuant to Section 5 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, at the applicant's expense, the satisfaction of the Township of Norwich. If required, the owner enter into a severance agreement with the Township of Norwich to the satisfaction of the Township Chief Administrative Officer. The Clerk of the Township of Norwich advise the Secretary Treasurer of the Land Division Committee that all requirements of the Township, financial services and otherwise have been complied with. Then there's a last condition that gets attached to all patients that include, it just says you have to do your conditions within 1 year and attach your or provide your documents to the Secretary Treasurer or your application will lapse.
How many is that?
Including that last.
Gord, do you have a question concerning any of those 8?
Yes, through to the chair. Again, kind of on the 2 points, that road widening off of Curry's Road, the 5-meter road widening essentially strips our stairs off of the existing church building. It leaves us with 1 foot in front of that building. With respect to the site triangle, although I feel there's zoning provisions to protect people from putting fences and trees up, I think we can concede that if we have language that says that 5x5 site triangle will occur, save and accept any of the existing church building and stairs. Because I'm concerned that the 5x5 site triangle is going to encroach significantly on the existing church building and stairs.
Ron? Anybody have a comment on?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just to that, I think the one word, the key wording here is that if required. I think that gives a little bit of flexibility to work on that and perhaps in negotiations with the county ultimately they're going to have to clear that condition to their satisfaction, advise Louise. So whether it's 5 meters or something reasonable facsimile to close to that, I think is probably appropriate. But I think the key wording here is if required.
Gord?
Yeah, I'll make sure I keep Ron's email available if something that's funny on that, but I understand.
Okay, are those conditions acceptable to you, Diane, as the mover of the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And who seconded?
Oh, can I just have a comment before we move forward?
Oh, yes.
I'm struggling mightily with this because there are so many things where we're kind of crossing, going against policy here. Is there any precedent where there's a church and a cemetery and it's not severed, that there can be some kind of agreement between the purchaser of that church and the trustees in this case for that cemetery? Because like the argument that the representative of the applicant's making here is a really great one with the heritage value of that church and it going into disrepair. Now the counter argument is that there could be loads of uses for that church, even if the cemetery is attached to it. But then they'd have to purchase that cemetery with it, which, you know, extra land, increase in price, less likely to get taken over. Like, is there some? Yeah, I don't know, through the chair to the probably Mr. Verstegen. Are you aware of something? I don't know where I'm going with this. Maybe save me from my own like wording here, but you know where I'm getting with this, right?
Could I make a comment? Go on.
Yeah.
Even if you give the severance, the same party owns both pieces of the property, right? So if they want to sell one, they have to go through all the conditions and all the laws and everything else to be able to sell that as what it is. So your concern, I think, would be covered at that time.
Okay.
At least in my opinion. Okay, you know, if somebody else tell me I'm totally wrong, but I think if you look at it from this point of view, as all you're doing is separating two pieces of property, they're still owned by the same people. Okay, trustees still own both pieces.
Right, but it's just that once we go forward with this, it is, you know, a smaller, like the county's point of view, like what they mentioned is that we are going significantly below the requirements here. So once we put this severance through, you know, that's it. Yes, they still own both pieces, but you know, you can't undo what we were to do here.
From a point of view of separating two pieces of property, you're right, but all, in at least my understanding and my viewpoint is that all the bylaws and all of the rules, etc., are still in place and are still effective on no matter what it is you want to do with the property going forward. Would that be fair, Gord?
That's my understanding as well too, is that the severance itself doesn't open up endless opportunities. We're still an institutional structure, and if we're unable to satisfy any other of the change of use requirements, it's not going to be converted to a different zoning, which will restrict its use. But at least by it being severed and being perhaps another denomination comes in, and maybe to Cohen's point is that it's generally to keep them together and try to lease a portion of it out, or to say the church and a religious denomination would want to have, I guess, control or carriage of their cemetery or their deceased, rather than having another religious denomination come in and potentially bury people within it or do something within their highly regulated cemeteries act to change something. So the idea of separating these two things, I think, is still, again, good planning purposes for Curry's in that rural cluster.
See, the way I'm looking at it, Colin, is that no matter what happens, if somebody wants to go ahead and change to a residence or whatever in the future, they still have to go through all those various subcommittees, municipalities, bylaws before they can get an approval to do what they want to do. So you have those safeguards in place to prevent any catastrophe, whatever, is the way I'm looking at it.
Okay. And then
Okay.
through the chair to Mr. Verstegen, does the county have any input based on what we just discussed here?
Well, I think in terms of, Mr. Chairman, we have not imposed, or the list of recommended conditions does not include a requirement that the property be rezoned to residential. I think we're with the conditions that we've recommended, we're okay with leaving it as an institutional use. And then, as you've kind of suggested, if they come forward with, the trustees come forward with a purchaser that wants to use it for residential purposes, they'll have to go through the zone change. And as you've already alluded, Mr. Chairman, there is other elements that they're going to have to do to convert the building. There's going to be the additional cost for the septic system and so on. But that's now then the responsibility of that landowner to take over that. So that's, I mean, as I say, I mean, conditions are probably something we can live with. Leaving as a institutional use and not requiring and automatically requiring that they be converted to a residential use, because that's something that would have to be considered by Township Council at an upcoming meeting if that comes forward.
See, where I'm thinking, Colin, is it's less the county's safeguard as it is the township safeguards, because they're the ones who do the building permits, they do everything else. And Russell can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the township you have to get past to do anything here, not just the county. So you have two levels of safeguards in there, in my way of thinking. Okay?
Yep.
Any other comment? Okay, any other comments? Could I have all those in approval of the motion? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's unanimous. So, Mr. Klein, you have your separation, but I think that's as far as you can go at this point in time. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Chairman and Louise, I think there's the other elements that for the minor variances that have to be considered as well.
I was just gonna say, we need
another motion for the variances.
just gonna say that.
Diane, are you struggling there for something?
Just making a note of it. Yes, I move that the variance application be approved.
Seconded? Oh, everybody and his uncle. Let's go for Peter this time. All those in favor? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, it's unanimous. Thank you very much for everyone's comments. Interesting piece of procedure, to be quite frank, and we're very curious to see how you proceed, Mr. Klein.
Thank you, committee.
So, Gord, your application's been approved. You can now take your sign down of the property, please. And you'll be sent out a decision within 15 days. There's a 20-day appeal period. We will probably be confirming everything up in the new year with you, because chances are, I think your 20-day appeal period is going to land within the Christmas vacation.
Understood. Thanks, Louise.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your patience, Gord. And like I say, I hope this decision can be worked out in the future for you.
Me
Thank you.
too. Thanks again.
Bye now.
Hey, Ron? Oh, can you shut your mute off? Oh.
Yep.
Can you message Gord, our Gord? And if everybody wants to stay on, I think he wanted to come down and say hello to everyone.
Well, I don't know about that.